I realized we're not in Hawaii, and I have no idea what's out here. That's what I just realized.
The Kangs. They're here.
Hey, well, first of all, I'd like to say, and I hate you're gonna find me, because I want to be a part of this fucking dumb wannabe tennis tour.
You know, I think they got his testicles so far up their mouths that this is bullshit, you know?
I'm not thinking about that right now. I'm just thinking about having won the world title and hopefully trying to win another one someday. You just drop in and just smack the drop down, say, bah! Well, I'll tell you, Stu, I did battle some humongous waves.
Oh, just the paper, please?
Oh, surf looks good on it.
Not bad.
Ain't that swell? With Jed and Vaughn.
Oh, those guys are back!
Get a haircut.
Yes, welcome to Blitzed, pure tour nerdism. The Tahiti Pro is a wrap. And Vaughn, it wasn't the conditions we were looking for. Puckered Phil is still very much Puckered Phil, the human asterisk. But look, it was an incredible contest in terms of the drama, the tension, the pressure, and really what was the best performance this season, I thought. Jack Robinson's win, given the circumstances, what he had to push through, just unbelievable. I mean, coming up against Yago Dora, was it in the quarters? I mean, sharing a coach, the coach being Yago's dad, and Jack managing to just compartmentalize everything and get through that heat and continue on through the event. Just a crazy performance, like far out. Not many people really would have the mental fortitude to deal with all that was thrown at him, not only in this event, but this entire season, to bounce back from injury and that really kind of awful run of performances through the mid part of the year when he probably wasn't fully fit. To still make the final five with a performance like that, unbelievable.
Yeah, Smithy, I'm with you, man. I mean, the surf was disappointing, but the event, the storylines, I mean, it just leaves so much on the table, though, doesn't it? Like, you know, for how many, like, unbelievable, mouth-watering setups there were and narratives heading into this event, you know? Like, we had far out that logjam of just chopes, maniacs all fighting out for that top five, that last spot, really, because Zhao had it not completely locked away. When he got it done in the elimination round, I was like, whoa, door open. But yeah, it was amazing, man. Just watching JJF and Gabby and Jack just all in that scenario. Oh, Yago as well, of course. And then on the women's side, Steph looking to sort of pull off another miracle. Goat's last event, the Olympic scenarios, man. There was so much going on, and I couldn't help but feel, Smithy, like I just wanted, just somehow, man, just wanted the Pacific to throw up some cornholes of truth, man. I wanted every lump of swirl that lurched out of the Pacific to actually mean something. And in the end, it was just another reflection of what this whole year has surfed up. And that is just a tripe-like pile of grov. Windblown, clampy, rank, fucking ribbed grov. And I don't know, mate. I've had a gut full of grov. Grov can fuck off for all I care, bro, because it's just, you know, how much more groving can we get? And, you know, in a year where the grov has been all it's really been about, we're going to head to Trestles, you know, the home of serious grov, and probably crown a couple of grov world title winners, which is reflective of the year. You can't, as much as, you know, Phil's puckered corn is always going to be hovering around him like, you know, fly blown cow anus. It's just that in a year where the surf is grov, there is no more world champ, is there? Like it makes perfect sense in a way. But geez, it's wild, man. Just to not get on the whinge spiral, Smithy. I do believe in the absence of truth, waves of truth, cornholes of truth. The one thing you can get behind, and I'm talking right behind, Tilly's level froth behind, it's the return of the shaman, hitting peak vibration, tapping the supreme state of being, purple chakra at full throb, corners shiny as Bemmy's dome, which he planted that big wet kiss on at the end of the final. And the Vortex Shaman, man, he's returned from his mid-season results sabbatical. He's leaner, stronger. He just looks mentally bulletproof. Electrifyingly dangerous form, man. And Grov been damned. Grov be damned. He gurned that Kern. He dealt with JJF, Medina, Yago, as you said, in a boil-over that is, like, even now feels way undersung. You know, we're one day since he won that final. And you are right, mate. Like, that is the performance of the season. Like, with everything that was going on, I'm feeling like ticker tape parade when he gets home, or at the very least, maybe just a meditation dojo built in his honor in Gracetown or in the car park or someone. You feeling me?
Oh, I'm feeling you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Mate, yeah. Scored pretty low on the chat rating. S for skits, H for Hamad, A for, are you kidding me? And T for torture. I gave it a 3.5, and to be honest, it was lucky to get that. It was almost unwatchable at times, this event, just because, like, there's one set of conditions that I really struggle to watch. It's inconsequential chopes. At 4 to 6 foot, like, there's not a surfer on tour who can't thread a 4 to 6 foot tube, women or men's, maybe except for Steph, it seems. But it just, and it's slow and pinchy, and yeah, it was a really awkward, tricky chopes too. It kind of wasn't on the back ledge. It was mostly on the inside ledge, but then there was kind of ones that would cap on that back ledge, and surfers would spring out to get them, but those back ledge ones, they didn't have enough energy to hug that section of the reef, and they'd feather and cap, and it was quite hard to get a read on the lineup. It seemed to all be about those inside nuggets on that inside ledge. But yeah, it was just a slow and tedious event throughout the majority of it. It really wasn't until finals day that at least there was some really captivating storylines, and that bumped it up into the above 3 range. Just the sheer stress as an Australian surf fan, far out. It was high pressure, high stakes, and what a satisfying win it was for an Aussie surf fan to see Jack get the better of both Yago and Medina, 2 of his adversaries in that race for the final 5. He had it all to do, and he just iced it, man. What a win. Like, and interesting to know just how calm he was afterwards. You know, there was no great show of emotion or elation. He was just calm, composed. He believed, he saw it unfolding the way it did in his mind before it went down, and he just didn't even seem all that surprised. Yeah, he's such a unique specimen, a unique talent, and that mental fortitude that he's developed over the past couple of seasons, it's pretty rare and unique. Like, it's not something I can remember seeing a whole lot of. Maybe Fanning have the ability to kind of really zero in and focus. And again, for much the same reasons, having to overcome so much hardship early on in life. And they've just built this mental armory that is, he's going to take some beating at Trestles. We'll get to that in a bit, but yeah, I feel like he might be about to pull off something special. He's in a very interesting space mentally. Physically, he looks like he's on the backside of not just that knee injury. Apparently, there was another injury in the mix that we haven't heard much about. But he looks physically in form, mentally as fit and tough, and just full of self-confidence as I've ever seen him.
Yeah, it's funny, man. That perfect alignment of spiritual, emotional, physical. He has somehow worked his way through that mid-season doldrum to just be stronger than ever. And I'm with you. I reckon heading into Trestles, like this time last year, we were just going, well, it's too big a task to take on Filipe in those ways, but you can't write off someone who is that staunch, man, that ice cold. Like, he's Sub-Zero. He is like, Duma and Mick Fanning's love child, which is, genetically, at least competitively, exactly who you want to be in your pro surfing career. Maybe not. Duma and Mick Fanning having a love baby. It presents quite an image, but he's there, mate. He's there, and I think it's classic. After watching the Griffin's performance, Griff is number 2 in the world. He was never going to get to number 1. Phil had too much of a lead, but he posted this thing about like trying to tap into gratitude, that sort of spiritual, I don't know what it is. Maybe like that place that he keeps trying to get to, that he puts so much work into getting to, and he's not quite there yet. I don't know if you read that, but it's well worth having a look at. And I was just thinking, well, that's the difference between, Griff, who's having to manufacture and full credit to him, he's doing the work. But Robbo, the Vortex Shaman, mate, he is living it. He actually exists in that space where the cosmic energy of the universe is always in his field of thought and experience and being. And it's a huge advantage in these sorts of scenarios, man, because he's doing post-heat interviews and going, yeah, man, the mana of this place, I'm really feeling it. Yeah, dude, the full moon last night, man. And, he's like, he's just out of this world, mate. And I feel like that's the scary thing for someone like, let's just say like Griff. Yeah, we'll get into that. But, knowing that you're trying to tap into that energy and get the same thing up against someone who is literally vibrating on a cosmic level that you can't reach. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, you mentioned him being the love child of Duma, Damien Hardman, and Mick Fanning. I feel like there's a potentially a bit of Asher Pacey crystal worshipping in the mix. And then on top of that, I mean, just his surfing at the moment, for me, he's like a combination of Andy Irons and Clay Marzo. Like, there's just this electricity, and this is more relevant to Trestles than Chopes. I mean, in hollow waves, he is an absolute wizard. That 9-4, which we'll get to in a second, was pure magic. Entered the realm of the glitch cone, the Vladimir glitch cone. But yeah, just the electricity, the lines, the zigs and zags between the zigs and zags, a la MP. What I get the feeling from with Jack is that he has the potential. He has like untapped potential. Like, he has the capacity to pull off surfing that you didn't know was possible until he does it. And that is something no other surfer in that final 5 race has. The problem with that brand of surfing, as we saw with Clay Marzo and Dane Reynolds, is that it's very hard to pull off in a competitive environment. Those guys had very mediocre competitive careers, but Jack seems to have found the balance between that electricity, the jazzy free form, just can go wherever he wants on the wave, like this kind of postmodern fin ditches where he's like riding backwards and spinning around, and just has so much control in such critical positions that I feel like if he surfs out of his skin, if he can connect to that divine energy, that mana, whatever you want to call it, and maintain that connection through the event at Trestles, he will win. It's really, I don't think his opponents are what he has to overcome. Ultimately, what he has to overcome is himself. If he can reach that potential, but then back it off just enough to maintain the consistency required to win heats, he will win that event. And I think anyone else in that position at 5th would not win, but he has the capacity to tap flow, get in rhythms, and get on runs that just will see him not fatigue mentally or physically. And, you hear about this in his free surfs too. You hear about these like obscene fucking 8-hour straight sessions at Toomey's where he has a sip of water and a fucking black coffee, and that's him. He's just out there all day packing his pineal to the brim. Like he is a unique specimen, man. Kind of unlike anything surfing's really seen before, I get the feeling. Not necessarily in the all-coming competitive conquering kind of Slater form, but just in this kind of electric, flowy, tapped into some deep source energy or code that, like, I don't know. It's the space that Haran wanted to tap, but just couldn't get there. Griffin's trying. He's gone one step better. I think Jack's there, but whether he can maintain it, that is the question.
Yeah, well, I'm just so thrilled that he's in that top 5, man, because pro surfing needs these like outer realm personalities, these like deep, cosmic fucking astral warriors. And Jack is that guy, and he brings something so exciting to these finals now. Because, yeah, man, like to me, yes, he is the glitch cone master, and he will find a way out of almost any tube. But it was just the icy cold belief. Like he never looked in trouble really at all in that comp. Like he just looked so strong, like impenetrable belief. And that's that energy. If he takes that mindset to Trestles, geez, he's going to be frightening. Because look who's above him, man. Like Joao's had a couple of bad events in a row. We've got Ethan. We don't even know what's going on with him, because there's no real updates on what his back's doing. We're just hoping it's in that Nathan Florence sort of zone where Nath broke his back in Ireland or Scotland or wherever it was earlier this year and was just slab charging 3 weeks later, it seemed like. So there's that. And then really, Griff and Jack has the potential to be the big thriller if it goes down like that. And then, Phil, I don't know what to think about Phil or how to even consider him at the moment. Maybe we'll go into that a little bit further, but you're right. It does seem like for where he's at right now, to bookend the win at Pipe at the start of the season, go through a huge mental, physical journey where he was just watching his year slip away from him, and to come back and to put on that performance, not just with the surfing, man, but the competitive strategy, belief, like iciness. That's what impressed me the most about this win. It was insane.
Let's get into the best wave.
That's going to be scary for everyone.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Let's get into the best wave. Had to be Jack Robbo's 9-4 against Liam O'Brien. Fully entered the realm of the glitch cone, as I mentioned. Shades of CJ Hobbity's 10 to beat Julian all those years ago. One American judge gave it a 9-8. So I was edging up towards the perfect realm. But, then again, that wasn't an American. And, your average American surfer has barely seen a hollow wave in his life on the mainland. So you can appreciate why he was so shocked. But a 9-8 from one judge. And, yeah, I mean, Chopes, it just seems to be able to hold the space for him, hold that space. It's really good at holding the space, and it holds the space for surfers to exist in this weird interdimensional purgatory like no other wave on earth, like especially in that 4 to 6 foot range. Like it's square. It has plenty of draw and push. Has this really powerful but friendly foam ball that tends to force its way out of the tube as that wave bends back on the west bowl. And then it has these kind of fluffy chandeliers and feathery bits that pinch and slow you down, but don't knock you off. And it just all combines to create these tube makes that are just out of this world. Like you fully give up on guys. And next minute, they're just coming out of some air pocket that like doesn't exist in any other wave on earth. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that swell direction with all those ribs, like more ribs than a freaking, I don't know, truck stop franger machine. And you're just sort of like dealing with these clampy, non-clean, just rank fucking seggies that, as you say, allow for these moments of almost like weightless foam ball riding that continue to push you out. And maybe the south swell has a bit to do with that. You're not getting as bucked on that shock wave. And so there is this kind of weird sweet spot. I heard Luke Egan talking about it, where on those sorts of swells where it's ribby and that, you can actually just sit on the pocket and it's sort of softer in there, and you can get a little bit of drive and push from the wave moving down the reef. So, yeah, unbelievable. That Robbo tube, again, you just, I mean, how often did he exit barrels, man. And you were just going, where's the line on that? Like, I don't understand. Like, he would pull in low and you'd see 2 chandeliers come over, and then he'd come out in this tiny little, like, the eye of a needle kind of gap at the very top of the wave, and he was almost sliding off the back, and he'd have to pump back down the face to do a Rio or whatever. It was sensational stuff, man. And Medina and John were doing some really similar tube riding as well. Like, but yeah, it was the Vortex's wave. But that was a pretty remarkable thing. I don't know if you caught it, just speaking about, you know, the way that the tubes were, but during the semi-final, mate, Pete Mel, he just went on this rant about the difference between clean exits and dirty exits. How surfers are always looking for a nice clean hole and not a dirty hole. And geez, I thought he was really pushing the limits of good taste in that commentary, mate. But I had a good giggle.
Yeah, that's right. No, it's a good point. And, you know, if you were to rock up and check chopes on a day like that, really what you would have seen was barrels that were not really makeable. They were pinching. Like, pretty much 99% of pits out there were pinching. And for anyone but like an elite level surfer, you're generally just not making waves like that. And that really was what decided like who was making heats, was your ability to deal with that pinch. You know, it's not the kind of pinch that will knock you off necessarily, but if you don't read the pinch, if you don't go high and brace for the pinch, it will knock you off. And Jack really read and accounted for that pinch better than any other backsider, I thought. His positioning on the drop, his wave selection, it was all on point, you know, and obviously he's the Vortex Shaman, but he just manhandled so many pinching pits that would have rolled most surfers on tour. You know, like you're saying, I saw so many waves like that weren't made, but would have been made if it was Jack. And they just weren't made because the surfer wasn't good enough to position themselves on the drop or get into a position to handle that clamping, pinching section.
Yeah. And like, you know, Smithy, if you pinch too early, you'll end up with a dirty exit. If you pinch at exactly the right time, mate, clean as a whistle. Clean as a whistle.
That's right. Now,
but also in the women's for best wave, I mean, clearly Caity Simmers against Faheen. What a heat. Like, so good. I actually had that as my best heat for the women's comp too. Like, you've got this, it's just, you know, what is she? She's the eternal surprise, Caity Simmers. Like, every time you think, nah, you know, J-Bay, we thought she was going to go bonkers. She looks so out of sorts. And then you think, okay, well, Chopes, backhand. But a massive doff of the gaff to Caity, like to rack up a 9.23 against the queen of Terry Hoopo. And yeah, man, it was just awesome to see that next generation step up yet again. She's always doing it with progressive sort of combos, tail release, fin ditches, and all that. But that line into that tube, which did have a filthy exit, dirty, clamping, pinchy one, but one of the most solid waves we saw. And I just thought, far out, man. Like, just when you thought the warning bells couldn't get any louder. And now she's in the top 5, you know, solidified her place with that result. And incredible surfer.
Yeah. It was really impressive just to see the way Molly and Caity attacked Chopes. I mean, yeah, you know, just good to see first round getting their feet in the wax and their head in the reef as they just face planted on several attempts to knife one out there. But yeah, I mean, far out. I guess it's confidence building to just fucking slap your face on the water and get fucking rolled on a couple. And you know, if that's the worst that can happen, well, frick, I'm gonna have a crack, and have a crack they did. So yeah, full credit to Caity. What a scalp. Faheen Fierro, far out. That chick is the #1 woman in the world at that wave. She's been dominant in previous events, and getting the win over her. You know, to beat her, you basically need to be dropping numbers like that.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in terms of the Olympics, you know, Faheen is an almost unbackable favorite. Like, her line into the tube there, like right from the very word go, was just, you could just tell it was an entire level above everyone else in the draw. So, you know, I mean, it comes down to the waves, and let's just hope that the Olympics is absolutely throaty as and mondo skids.
Best heat. Well, look, I had a couple. Hard to go past the men's final, ultimately. I mean, what a clash of the Titans it was. Medina's record out here or at Chopes is ridiculous. I think he's made, what was it, something like 6 finals or something with 2 wins.
So mad.
One of which was on debut in like pretty maxed out Chopes. And he was reading it like Braille all event long. In 4 to 6 foot slabbing left pits, like he's a fucking wizard, like one of the best of all time. Left tubes of any size, really, but at that size, he's just making the impossible look buttery and stuffing his face, filling his pineal like an absolute glutton. He was so busy during his the heats on final days. On finals day, racked up 11 waves in his win over John Florence, 17 waves in his win over Barron in the semis, just packing nugget after nugget. And you could just tell there's no place he'd rather be in the world than at Chopes packing squared out novelty cones. And it's just so hard to beat talent like that when they're in their happy place. Slater at Pipe, Toledo at J-Bay, Medina at Chopes. You know, it's gotten to that point. He has that kind of affinity for that wave now. Problem was, there was another prodigious talent in the draw that loves waves like this every bit as much, and that's the Vortex Shaman. That heat, though, yeah, an absolute special. Interesting, there was such a pattern between Medina's performance against John and Jack. It was almost an identical start where he took the inside. He, had an 8 and then a solid backup score. So he was turning in combined totals of like 15 within the opening 10 minutes, putting Jack under all kinds of pressure. But unlike John, Jack was able to keep his composure. He struck back with a 7.83, a solid drainer. Medina just kept finding those inside nugs for 5, trying to sell Jack on lemons, but you can't get the Jack in hollow waves. He just understands those lineups better than anyone. He waited for an age, found an absolute bomb, biggest wave of the event, but then it feathered and closed out. That was probably one of the only poor wave selections he had all event long, but it was weird. It was he kind of had to go that wave because it did look like it was the 1 6-footer all event that was going to hit that outside ledge. It was probably like I said, the biggest wave of the event, but it still feathered. Then there was that long lull, nearly 10 minutes of pretty much no waves, with Medina just trying everything he could to bamboozle Jack, paddling way up the point, trying to drag him out of position. But Jack, stayed calm, found a super technical tube, packed the first bit, came out and pumped into the next longer, throatier section. It filled up with foam, but he saw that coming and shifted his back foot back on the tail pad and braced for the bucking Bronco, and then somehow emerged out the bottom of the pit with a fist pump, got the score, a 7.83, took the lead. Medina on the wave right behind that one, probably the wave of the heat. It was amazing that Medina's entire season hinged on this wave, and you'd expect him to make it. It was a bit of an awkward airdrop, but he found a rail, pumped through a big chamber, and maybe could have got a second pump in. But he ended up getting bucked off by the foam ball just short of the exit, went over the handlebars. That was the heat winner. Crazy that it came down to that wave. I mean, as mediocre as this event was, that heat and the end to that heat was as high pressure and tense as it gets. Just a wild exchange, mate. As an Aussie surf fan, you were fucking fist pumping. You were doing cartwheels. I was doing a bit of copper weir at the computer screen, throwing heel kicks. Cop that.
Yeah, it was unreal, man. It was unreal. And just to, put what Jack's done into context, because we were talking about earlier, is Australia celebrating enough yet, Smithy? I don't think we are, because that performance to beat the absolute King Titan, the freaking number one guy at Chopes, there's no question. And he was on a hot one. Like some of those little runners that he'd pick off just by being busy, those ones that would sort of like be all fluffy at the top, and then they'd hit that inside bit and just run and run and run, and he'd be going like 3 seggies in a row with like blowouts while he's in the tube stalling, and he was so fun to watch out there, man. Far out, it was cool. Yeah, I thought that heat was awesome, but I also loved the that was heat of the comp. But I also did love the Jack Robbo lobby heat. I thought that was really cool, and the John Gabby heat, it was a bit of a fizzer in terms of the fact that Gabby just ran away with it so heavily. Like John never really got started. Gabby just ran rings around him. But I was just like the prospect of that heat, and like I got so ramped up for it, and like, you know, classic mistake, just juicing on the hype rather than, you know, what's playing out. But what a bummer that we finally had those two, you know, and again in a position where they had to beat each other to keep their year alive, and you're just watching it in this sort of subpar windblown cross-shore shit. Such a bummer, man. Like, that's one of my big regrets. It was actually my big surprise. Sorry, I've jumped way ahead of the queue here, but yeah, I was so pumped for that to be the heat of the event. It wasn't. One thing I will doff the gaff to, mate, is that the heat of the year was actually the final of the Terry Hopo trials with Mata Hydrolay and Amayo just trading 10-point rides. I don't know if you copped it. It
I
was the
didn't.
number
I saw
one
bits
swell
and
event.
pieces. It was pumping. It was
Brother,
proper.
go
Cooking
and
chokes.
if you want to properly fizz out, both those guys get 10s, and they are as good at 10-point rides as you've ever seen at Chopes, ever. So I just want to doff the cap to that heat because, you know, while it wasn't during the event that we all sat down and watched, it was the heat of the year by far. Two guys who live on that reef, literally feed the fish with their bodies often, and they were riding it over the freaking foam ball like you cannot believe, man. Like, I'll tell you that one that the one that Amayo got was just, he had his Mayo gun firing at full steam into the maw of that thing. It was hectic. And you know, Matahi, he was just soul arching into fucking the big West Bowls, brother. Oh, doff the gaff, Smithy. Can't get enough of that. That was heat of the year for mine. I want to just acknowledge that right here.
Big doff, but where was the heads up from the Wazzle or Surfline on the trials and the swell that was imminent? I feel like that one just really flew under the radar. And, you know, the names you're mentioning there alongside, you know, Tikanui Smith and all the call lords, like that was kind of the real Tahiti pro right there. Amayo is an absolute don. We saw him at the backdoor shootout.
Beast.
Fuck, mate. The kid was sending it. Let alone at Chopes, and Matahai, widely regarded as the best in the world out there. Yeah, bummer to have missed that. I'll definitely be tapping in. Another shout out to the Yago Slater heat. Was it the round of 16 or the quarters? I can't remember, but the GOAT in you know, really good form, pushing, you know, a would-be Final Five contender right to the brink. The GOAT surfed the perfect heat, managed priority like a master right to the death, just had the rub on every single exchange, except for the last one. It was unbelievable. At that level, if you leave one stone unturned, you get done. I mean, the fact that there was so few waves of the caliber Yago got to win that heat in the last minute, that alone, that the wave came in that last minute was a miracle. But the fact that he also had priority and managed to send Slater on the first one of the set, it was a hard loss for the GOAT to cop that one. Oh, man. But a great heat. And, I mean, full credit to the GOAT to be able to push that generation to that level at this stage of his career.
Man, just one moment of speculation here, Smithy. Do you think the GOAT, like, does he have it in him to announce that he's just going to do the first 5 comps of the year and do a victory lap goodbye to say goodbye to all his fans? Or do you reckon he's just going to park it, hang up the rashy, surf pipe for sure? He's not going to miss that one. I think the opportunity to just go out at Pipeline and surf with 1 or 2 other guys. He knows if there's waves, he could go close to, you know, finaling. What do you think? Just a tiny GOAT watch here. What are you thinking?
Is it that he's that much of a self-absorbed slave to the cone and to uncrowded conditions that all this is really about is him scoring world-class waves with one other guy out, and he'll do whatever he
For
has
sure,
to do.
bruh.
He'll do whatever he has to do to get himself into the waves that he likes. So don't expect him to show up at El Salvador or Rio or Margs or even Bells. Expect him just to be turning out at, he'll be there at Snapper, at the Changers for sure. Pipe, Chopes, definitely. J-Bay, yes. Paniche, if there's a good forecast, expect him to show up there too. But I think that's what this is really about. We know how famously selfish and self-absorbed and indulgent surfers are. And, who could begrudge him? At the end of the day, it's what we all want for him. Uncrowded, perfect waves. And it's what we all can never get, except for the GOAT.
Mate, yeah, you think about it. Like, you could paddle out, especially if Cloudbreak comes back on that schedule, man. Like,
he'll do another 5 years.
He'll
do another 5 years if Cloudy gets back on.
Yeah, well, what he'll probably do is get Out and Known to sponsor 3 events that he just loves, so he can go and surf them all by himself. But it's fun to speculate.
Move into a van. He'll just put his entire life savings. He'll mortgage whatever houses, whatever units he has in fucking Snapper or Avalon. Move into a van and just surf Out and Known events from that point on. I can see it. I believe it.
What has the GOAT got up his sleeve, man? Rebel tour. Little Rebel Out and Known tour that could fire up somewhere. Who knows? But man, look, it was a heartbreaking loss for the GOAT, and I felt, it's so weird, the way that he's sort of constructed these, will I or won't I, and all that mystery, and not giving everyone the chance to like fully embrace that that's his last event. It's kind of robbed him of this big farewell moment in a way. I don't know. It makes it feel a little bit lonelier than it should. And it was a tough one to swallow, but there's no way he's not going out pipeline, mate. So if that's his last event, that'll be his last event, but we'll wait and see.
Biggest surprise, I had Caity Simmers in her debut year, her first attempt at competing at Chopes, going all the way to the final. I mean, far out. She is an absolute superstar in the making, getting into the final 5 at Trestles, a wave she knows very well in her rookie season. Man, I mean, what more can she do apart from winning the world title?
Mate, I was watching some stab footage of her just in these nice, fun, playful, glassy right-handers, and the surfing she's doing. We all saw it in Toasted. We all saw it. We've seen it all over the shop, actually. But wow, she brings something else to this tour, especially in that sort of surf. And you can really see her cutting loose at Trestles. I mean, the only thing, maybe, and we don't really know because we haven't seen her, but the amount of energy that's going to be going into her and Griffin, and probably Carolyn Marks as well, as they hit America, mainland America, like how just crew, man. Like they want that hometown hero, and they've got some big shots at it here. How does that pressure factor into a young mind and a first-time rookie like Caity Simmers?
Yeah. I mean, she's handled everything that's been thrown at her thus far, looking like a really savvy move to not surf that first season a la Taj on the CT and go back and just mature mentally and physically. Because, man, holding her back, she's been shot out of a cannon and into the upper echelons of the CT, mate. Hard to imagine her being beaten at Trestles on those rights. I mean, the only thing I can think of that's going to hold her back, she's got to come from so deep in the draw. That kind of lithe, diminutive frame could look a little bit weak against the kind of more physically matured like Tyler Wrights and Carissa Moores. And then she's also got to overcome that kind of futuristic brand of surfing by Molly Picklum. that like really explosive new school act. She's got that in her as well. Caroline Marks going upside down on the rights. There's a lot working against her, but far out, man. When she's on, and I don't know if there'll be anyone really as at home in those conditions as her. I imagine she's surf trestles more than any other surfer in that draw. So, yeah, the world is her oyster, Vaughn. The breakthrough, yeah, probably the wild card, Mihimana Bray in the men's, a complete unknown. The fact that he could get past who he had to get past just to get into the event in the trials in those kinds of conditions, and then to go so deep into the event. What was it, a quarterfinal finish in the end? I think going down to Barham and Mia. But yeah, incredible performance from a total unknown.
Yep. I actually just backed all the wild cards. I mean, it's not really a breakthrough when you're looking at Corley Vast and Vahini. Everyone expects those two to go well. I think Corley even finaled last year, but mate, yeah, Mihimana, and like look at the names these guys took out, man. Like he took out Toledo, the number one surfer in the world. Corley took out Zhao Xianca and Griffin Colapinto. That's number 4 and 2. That's the top 3 surfers in the top 5 done by wildcards and loc dogs. Like, man, that's as breakthrough as it gets. It doesn't matter how used you are to seeing these guys like perform in these sorts of waves. The waves weren't really in their wheelhouses, a huge advantage. Like if it was a humongous West Bowl, sure. And sure, they know the ones that are going to clamp and the ones that aren't. But to put away 3 of the top 5, dude, that is hectic. So brutal. And big doff of the gaff for that.
Yeah, I tended to think that actually those kinds of conditions really play into the locals' hands. Just when it's big and on that back ledge, you kind of know the situation. You know what you have to do to get in and get out of a West Bowl 8-footer. But in those tricky, warbly, ribby conditions, getting the read on which ones. I guess a lot of the time the conventional wisdom would have been look for the biggest, throatiest pit you can get out there. But during the entire event, the biggest waves were the worst ones. They were just fucking wobbly pieces of shit. So yeah,
but it's so it's astounding to me though, Smithy, that like in those conditions, all Mihimana did in his heat against Phil was just hustle on the inside, which I just thought, fuck, this is the event where Phil surely is going to hustle on the inside. It's never been set up for him to get those little inside drainers. And yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what he was looking for out there.
That's my point, is that I think that caught a lot of the top surfers off guard, that they don't realize the interplay between the inside and outside ledges at Chopes, and that like when it's small like that, it's all about the inside ledge. Don't even look at the ones that cap out the back. They're not really offering scoring potential. And then you think back to Jack Robinson's performance last year, where it was inside ledge Chopes at the start of the event, and then that one fucking Widowmaker came through and hit the outside ledge, and he was on it. Remember that? It ended up being on a 4-foot day. He ended up getting this random 8-footer because that guy is so good at reading what the ocean's doing that he was able to identify a bomb on the back ledge. But yeah, you're so right. Like Toledo, it was so set up for him, but you kind of wonder who he had in his corner. Like if he had a Ray Mana, whistling him into waves like the Quicksilver team, like Slater and Reynolds in the past, maybe he would have done better. But yeah, I wonder who was kind of pointing him around the lineup, because fuck, the guy was trying to go right out there. He was he was But
that's a whistle you don't need.
We skipped through the biggest melt. My biggest melt, mate, had to be John Florence. That was one of the worst performances I can ever remember him turning in against Medina, and it was, the writing was on the wall right from the first exchange. John just didn't want to get down and dirty with Medina for priority at the start of the heat, and he paid the price dearly. I think Medina racked up an 8.33 or something like a score in the excellent range. He essentially gave Medina an 8-point head start. And then he had a 6 to follow that up. So a combined total of 15 Now, while that didn't bother Jack, the Vortex Shaman, John absolutely melted. He just looked awful. He was just on every bad wave. Like everyone that kind of hit the back ledge, he was trying to go. Like he was packing. I don't know if it was John Florence or Jedham John Smith out there at times, because he was just fucking going head first over the falls in foam balls and wishy-washy burgers, like taking off wide of the tube at times on the end section. He just completely short-circuited in that heat and was just had rings surfed around him by Medina.
Yeah, it's so weird, man. That heat that John surfed against Rio, where he got like a 17.64 total. He had a couple of pretty close to genuine nugs, like of all the waves that broke during the comp, there was only a handful that looked like Chope's waves, and he was on both of them in that heat. Pure little hoopoo special with that 9.57, real bowled out, thick one. And I just got the sense when I was watching that heat, I was like, man, the appreciation you have for that guy when he's on, like when he's just in pure sync. He was having like a Medina heat where he was just, every time he paddled out, another score had come. Like aside from his what did he have, an 8.07 maybe and a 9.57, something like that. So in that particular instance, I felt like, wow, this just is like a spiritual experience watching John in heavy water. And I know it wasn't huge and maxing, but it was so spiritual to watch him just do what he does. And then when the coin flipped and he got put into that, scenario where he had to fight, there was no mortal cone off going down in that heat. The only way he was going to get over the top of Medina was to match him competitively, and he shriveled. It was a huge melt and a massive surprise.
Yeah, you got to wonder, if you're not willing to battle Medina for the inside at the start of the heat of that kind of importance, like, should you even bother being on the world tour? I mean, they were both surfing for their futures, for the chance to contest a world title, and he basically just gave Medina the inside and allowed him to race off to this humongous lead. You sometimes get the feeling with John that, if it's not happening on his terms, it's not happening. And that, that can't be the attitude at this stage of his career. I mean, we've seen what happened when, Zeke Lau put the heat on him at Bells, a surfer who is far inferior, but just simply by getting up in his grill and taking his space away and making him feel uncomfortable, he can capitulate like that. It's an interesting one. He's not that competitive firebrand. He's not that, gritty, steely, get the win at all costs kind of competitor. There's an air of dignity and grace and even spirituality to the way he surfs. He talks about that. He talks about just his main goal with competing is to unlock the flow state, the kind of free surfing feel in that setting. But you got to wonder, man, when there's that much at stake in that kind of heat where what Medina's going to throw at you, and to not try and match it with him just for one heat, man. Like, it just really made me question what he's doing there at this point.
Yeah, it's a crazy one, man. And I just wonder what a world title even means to John Florence and Medina at this stage of their careers, when they've won it a few times. They know what they feel like after it. The motivation to lift that trophy is like they have. It's not just like that thing where you wake up in the morning anymore and you're like, I want to be the world champ. Like that, I don't reckon that factors into their thinking at all. That's something they've got to actually manifest into their lives. At times during that comp, I felt like I was watching John and in J-Bay too, fully tap into that energy again, where I was going, wow, here we go. He's on. He's looking really sharp and interested and vicious. And then you just see those little heats, and like they're the ones that really, they're the difference between winning world titles and not winning them, or between making the top 5 and not making it. It's just got to be part of your entire focus. And that's where Jack is. That's where Griffin is. That's where Phil is. Like, Phil still wants to win more world titles. So it's so easy for those guys to always be focused and on. And I feel like for John and Gabby, like, look, Gabby was insane in that comp, but you still get the feeling that underneath it all, there's just that little bit of like, what's this mean? You know, like bigger questions being asked maybe.
Yeah, it's a great point. What does it all mean? Well, there's plenty of Aussies in the final 5. That's what it means. And I'm confident one of them can bring home the bacon. Although, as far as the men goes, Vaughn, it's very hard to see anyone getting past puckered Phil at Trestles in a best out of 3 duel. You know, like you might get the better of him once, but beating him twice at what is essentially his home break in the kinds of conditions that he's just so consistent in, i.e. head high rights and a couple of skitsy backside rotors on the lefts for good measure. Man, it really is hard to see anyone getting the better of him in those kinds of conditions. Like I said at the top of the show, if there is someone who can do it, I do feel like that man is Jack Robinson. I just feel like we haven't seen the best of him still in his career. And I think he would have learned a lot from last year where he looked for all money as a world champion, but he just made a slight strategic error where, you know, the conditions deteriorated and he just got left high and dry without a solid backup on a quality wave, waited too long. And just didn't get the rub in what were pretty mediocre conditions. I think he'll learn from that. And I think he's a real dark horse. He's probably where I'd be putting my money. Ethan, man, that's a nightmare. Suffering a back injury at Chopes is exactly what we were worried might happen to puckered Phil. But it's happened to Ethan Ewing instead. Do we know the circumstances around it? Was it an impact injury or was it more of a tweaked back spasm kind of scenario?
It sounds like fractured vertebrae is the I don't know or stressed vertebrae. I'm not exactly sure, man. Like until we actually know the extent of the damage, we're just all kind of hoping for one of those flexes that you can get through. But even that is not ideal, you know, for your headspace, for everything that needs to be absolutely perfect and on point is not where it needs to be for Eth. So we're just fingers crossed and hoping, man, because if he is going into that final feeling confident and strong, that just makes that whole top 5 one of the best ever. Like it is so exciting. And, you know, this time last year, we thought that a weak performance at Chopes might actually get into Phil's head a little bit. But he just showed that he doesn't give a fuck about that, man. He's not worried about what people think of him in those sorts of surf. He is a champion. We all love his surfing 6 foot and under, but it's just clear, man. Like in a year with nothing but Grov, he's the unbackable favourite. And I've only got 2 words left to say to you, Smithy, and that is that regardless of what happened to Trestles, puckered corn.
Yeah, hard to argue with that. I mean, looking at Ethan now in the context of that injury, far out, man, he's going to be hard pressed at Trestles because that brand of surfing requires you to be physically impervious, physically flawless.
Yeah.
Having a serious back injury, looking at the body torque and the G forces at play when he's ripping turns off the top, like fuck, man. If he's carrying a serious back injury, I'm almost putting a line through him.
Yeah, I'm with you. On the women's side, mate, Jesus, exciting. I mean, Tyler and Molly are just absolute animals. They will train the house down. Like, start putting that Rocky theme on right now, man, because that's what their worlds are going to look like until that first hooter goes on finals day. The Rippy Was finals are going to be bringing it. Caity is just such an explosive wild card. So exciting to think about. Queen Riss is up the top of that tree, man, and how frothing is she that Steph isn't there? Like, that just takes so much pressure off Queen Riss. I think the big mental hurdle would have been a steamrolling Steph Gilmore again. Like, that would have just been nightmares. Doesn't matter how strong she is. She's number 1. It's her year. But how much will last year haunt her dreams in the lead up to that event? Because, you know, she was in a very similar situation. Dominant throughout the year, would have won the world title in the old format, and just gets completely done in the last day of the entire season. You know, is Carolyn Marks going to be the surfer? It's just all about that momentum and how it affects Riss coming into it. I'm sure her team will be really on top of that this time around. She's probably seen the best sports psychs in the world to get her absolutely rock solid. But still, the energy on the day, you know, you just don't know who's going to be on and who's going to be off when the grand final whistle. Who to blows, my man.
Such a good point. Yeah, you'd imagine she's going to have to overcome some case of the yips after coughing up the world title to Steph last year. And just, the yips, that kind of niggling sensation when it does come down to crunch time. If you haven't fully accounted for that, and I don't know how you do account for that. I don't know how you block out that weird little tendency to kind of choke right at the pointy end when you're back in that same situation, because she is going to find herself in that situation again at some point where she's down a score and needing to pull one of those, it's a 3-heat surf off. So she's going to be in a situation where she's going to need to pull scores out when she's behind and in a difficult situation to not go to seed in that kind of setting. Fuck, mate. There's some serious mental training that's going to have to go into that. I'm really excited just to see 4 fresh faces in that final 5. Caity Simmers, obviously the prodigy, rookie year. What an amazing run. Unbelievable. She's going to have all the hometown support. She's going to be an absolute just juggernaut. Molly Picklum, that explosive take, that take no prisoners kind of approach. That she's just been going head to head, toe to toe with the big dogs, and just
such a scrapper, isn't she?
Oh, she's so good. I
Fight
love
night.
that. Just a Shelley Beach classic. Her performances this year have just screamed tenacity, and she's just got that really futuristic approach as well that I think is going to be so suited to Trestles. I get the feeling like if it's her versus Caroline in that heat, I feel like she's going to get the nod there. Caroline, sure, she can unlock that incredible tempo, just going upside down over and over again, backside. But I feel like Molly, if it moves to the right, just expect some fin ditches and air reverse, something really magic and out of that kind of new school handbook. And then Tyler Wright, fuck, mate, she hasn't surfed in this format yet. We'll see how it suits her. I'm imagining it will. She's just looking fit as all fuck, gouging and hacking that horseshoe right to bits. You can see it already,
mate.
And just with a head of steam, just loving the challenge. And she thrives on those kind of pressure cooker scenarios these days with where she's at in life. And, you look at who's in her corner, just the family alone. You can imagine the Rockets, Mikey and Owen are going to be putting up the pep talks, mate. She's going to be absolutely ready to go.
Yeah, it's so exciting to start thinking about it. I know we're going to be ramping up the content as we start working our way towards the WSL Rip Curl final, Smithy. We're going to try and talk to all the athletes. We're going to go deep. We're going to go hard, brother, because this is what it's all about. It doesn't really matter what the year's been like as long as we end with a bang. And we've got 4 Aussies there, mate, who could lift that trophy. So let's do it, mate. Let's get the Taipan up. Let's get T-Dub up. Let's get the Pickle fired up. And let's get Ewing back to his best, brother. I'm starting to feel it, Smithy.